Every December, my social feeds, I mean, they just explode into this collage of bright colors, fun little animations, and maybe a slightly embarrassing summary of my listening habits.
You know exactly what we're talking about.
Spotify Wrapped, it's become this annual ritual, right? It turns our private streaming data into this huge public identity badge.
And it really is a phenomenon. It's born from this perfect mix of engineering and psychology. It started back in 2015 as Your Year in Music.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and then it rebranded to Wrapped in 2016, and now it's just this essential cultural event. To give you a sense of the scale, in 2023, the campaign engaged a record 227 million active users globally.
And when you think about the sheer volume of data that feeds that one little story for each person, it's staggering. We found a stat that the average U.S. user streams something like 743 hours of music a year.
Which is what, almost a full month of continuous listening?
Yeah, a full month of just feeding this machine.
And, that brings us right to our mission for this deep dive. We're going to look under the hood of Wrapped. We want to unpack three things.
Okay.
First, the technical architecture, the huge data engine that makes it all work. Second, the masterful marketing psychology that makes it go viral every single year.
And the third?
And third, the really critical trade-off that you, the listener, accept between all that personalization and your own privacy every time you hit play.
So let's start with that data foundation, because Wrapped isn't just, a simple spreadsheet adding up your top songs. The system has to process mountains of raw data.
It absolutely does. Every single action you take, a play, a skip, a search, saving a song, adding it to a playlist, all of that is logged as a unique event.
So billions of events.
Billions. Spotify is reportedly collecting and joining all these events, handling what they've described as exabytes of data, just to compute those individualized metrics you see in December.
Exabytes. That's one of those numbers that's so big it's hard to even picture. What does that mean for the engineers building this thing?
Well, it means you can't use standard database tech. No way. To process that volume for 227 million users and give each one a personalized story basically at the same time, you need industrial-scale distributed computing.
So we're talking about huge server farms running custom code.
Exactly. Massive parallel processing, custom machine learning models, all just to analyze, clean, and then present that story in a way that feels accurate and personal. The scale alone makes it an engineering marvel.
All right, so let's pivot from the engine to what it produces. The viral marketing campaign, I mean, you could argue this is one of the most successful psychological campaigns in modern tech. Why does it work so incredibly well?
It's because they figured out how to turn this very personal, very private data into a shareable visual story.
Right.
Spotify basically found a way to weaponize our own desire for self-expression, for that little I was here badge, to advertise the brand for free. They turned millions of listeners into, well, involuntary marketing agents.
That's a little cynical, but I mean, you can't argue with the results. Give us some of the big numbers from the campaigns.
The campaigns are just a masterclass. The 2024 campaign, for example, generated something like 2.1 million social media mentions in just 48 hours.
Wow.
And on TikTok, it got over 400 million views in 3 days. And this isn't just noise. It creates this powerful FOMO, this fear of missing out, which leads to real results. Like back in 2020, the Wrapped drop led to a reported 20% boost in app downloads.
And the design is what really pushes that sharing, right? It's never just a list of stats. It's a visual story with bold graphics, playful language.
Exactly. They tap right into your sense of self. Instead of just saying, you listen to 100 hours of rock, they give you a whimsical music persona.
Right, like the devotee or the specialist.
Or even the vampire who only listens after midnight. It gives you a character profile, something you want to share and compare.
The 2024 design had those bright Technicolor hyperloops, right? The whole idea was constant reinvention.
And they keep adding new features to make it deeper. The 2024 Wrapped, that was the 10th anniversary, it introduced your music evolution, which broke down your listening history into these little phases.
Oh, that's clever.
And crucially, they've expanded it beyond just you, the listener. They now create personalized Wrapped hubs for artists, for podcasters, and for the first time, even for authors of audiobooks. So the whole ecosystem feels included.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. I want to dive into the specific technology that makes that personalization feel so real. For the story to work, the algorithm has to be, well, perfect. This is where recommender systems come in.
Precisely. The ability to serve you the perfect song at the perfect time, that's the core product.
Right.
And that relies on these really sophisticated systems.
So when we talk about these systems, what are the main ways they figure out what I want to hear next?
The most common is something called collaborative filtering, or CF.
Collaborative, so it's looking at other people.
Exactly. It's all about finding similarities between you and other users. It builds what's called a user item rating matrix. So if you and 1,000 other people all listen to the same 5 underground artists, the system assumes you'll probably like the next artist those 1,000 people start listening to.
That makes a lot of sense. But what happens if I'm a brand new user or a brand new band puts out their first song?
Ah, that's the big weakness of CF. It suffers from the cold start problem. If you're new, or the song is new, there's no shared history for the system to use. The recommendations are just generic or impossible.
And I imagine a lot of people don't rate every single song they hear.
Right, and that's the other issue, data sparsity. There are huge gaps in the data because people don't give that explicit feedback.
So if collaborative filtering is about what others do, what's the alternative?
That would be the content-based approach. This one focuses entirely on your past behavior. If you spend 3 hours listening to 80s synth pop.
It's going to give me more 80s synth pop.
Exactly. It's very accurate based on what you've done, but it leads to what's called the serendipity problem.
Which means I'm stuck in a musical bubble and I never discover anything new.
You get over-specialization, yeah.
Yeah.
So to break that bubble, you move to the third type. Context-aware systems. These use all the surrounding information to refine the suggestions.
What kind of surrounding information are we talking about?
Anything they can log that isn't the song itself. So time context. You listen to classical on weekday mornings but heavy metal on Saturday nights.
Okay.
Or physical context, your actual location, or even social context, like if you're on a family account. It all dramatically improves relevance.
But using all that extra data time, location, even my phone's motion sensors, that must be incredibly complex to compute. And it definitely raises the privacy stakes.
It does. The complexity goes way up. And yes, they rely heavily on data mining to find those features, which is where the privacy concerns really start to bite. That's why most modern platforms, Spotify included, use hybrid systems.
The fourth type.
Right. They combine 2 or more techniques to get the best of all worlds and, try to overcome the drawbacks of each one.
So if it's this hybrid system, this deep machine learning, how much room is there for an actual person to influence things? How does an editorial team even make a dent?
That's the balancing act. The human element isn't about curating your specific feed. It's about setting macro-cultural trends. The editorial teams are watching social media, industry charts, cultural events all year long.
So they're injecting things into the system.
Yes, they inject high-quality content like playlists for a cultural holiday or a trend they see on TikTok into the algorithmic feed. This makes sure your Wrapped, while based on your data, still feels grounded in the culture of that year.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The fun of Wrapped, the personas, the metrics, it's not an accident. It's a highly strategic use of gamification.
It absolutely is.
We're being encouraged to interact specifically so they can solve the data problems we just talked about.
That is the critical link. Gamification, applying game mechanics like points or rules to a non-game environment, is designed to get users to be more interactive.
Why?
Because every time you interact, every share, every saved playlist, you're providing the explicit data they need to overcome those cold start and data sparsity problems we mentioned.
So those fun little personas and your evolution features, they're basically just sophisticated data collection prompts.
Essentially, yes. Gamification can be reward-based, using things like points and badges to motivate you. Or, like Wrapped mostly does, it can be meaningful, which boosts your intrinsic motivation through things like play, choice, and seeing your own data as a story.
Where else do we see this kind of thing working?
Oh, it's everywhere. LinkedIn uses progress bars and scores to get you to complete your profile 100%.
Right. And that gives them rich, structured data.
Exactly. Kaggle, the data science platform, uses badges to reward activity, which helps them generate high-quality data sets for other people to use.
And the research backs this up, right? This is a strategy used in specific industries.
Yes. Our research showed that the academic focus on these systems is dominated by fields that need constant user input. Healthcare and fitness account for 50% of the papers, followed by e-commerce and education. They need you to log your workout, and gamification is the hook.
Okay, so what about the competition? Spotify basically invented Wrapped, but the rivals are catching up fast.
They are, and they're being strategic about how they differentiate. Take Apple Music Replay. It's dynamic. It updates your playlist weekly all year, so it's not just one big annual drop.
And Apple's other big play is quality, right?
Yes, their big differentiators are technical. They support lossless audio and Dolby Atmos, which is huge for audiophiles.
Yeah.
And they have better library management tools, which is a legacy from the old iTunes days.
So Apple is targeting the serious collector, the audiophile.
Precisely. YouTube Music, on the other hand, uses content breadth as its weapon. Their recap drops a bit earlier, and crucially, it leverages the entire YouTube video platform.
So its strength is having access to basically every song ever uploaded to YouTube.
That's their unbeatable advantage. All the remixes, the live tracks, things that aren't on other services, they compete on sheer volume.
And the free tiers are also strategically very different.
Oh yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic. Spotify's free tier has background play but limits your skips. YouTube Music's free tier gives you unlimited skips, but no background play, which is a huge push to get you to upgrade.
And Apple.
Apple Music has no free ad-supported tier at all. They're maintaining that exclusive premium brand image.
All right, let's flip the record over and talk about the cost of all this. Wrapped comes with a serious trade-off, and privacy advocates don't pull any punches. They call it marketing surveillance.
The fun, they argue, is just a disguise for the infrastructure. And the critique really stems from how invasive the data collection is.
It's not just my play counts?
Oh, far from it. They log extensive demographics and identity info. We're talking IP-based location, gender, presumed nationality. They even try to build taste profiles that infer things like your presumed social class.
Wow, and that's before you even get to the technical data they're tracking.
And that technical data is comprehensive. They log URL info, device IDs, network type, and for some features, they even access the motion and orientation sensor data from your phone.
Wait, motion and orientation sensors? Why would a music app need to know if I'm running or sitting down?
Well, for certain context-aware features, it helps them refine predictions about what you're doing. But the crucial point is that this level of monitoring is what allows for such deep profiling. And it has led to real consequences.
Like the GDPR fine.
Exactly. Spotify got hit with a 5.4 million GDPR fine in 2023 for failures in data transparency in Europe.
And that's not just a slap on the wrist. That sends a pretty serious message about clarity.
It's a huge signal, and it highlights the risk of inferred data. The algorithms aren't just summarizing your listening. They're making inferences about your mental state, your social identity. By analyzing your podcast habits, they can potentially infer really sensitive things like your race, gender, maybe even your sexuality.
Which makes that data set exponentially more valuable and a lot riskier if it ever leaks. We also saw a lot of user pushback on the 2024 Wrapped, especially around the AI they integrated.
Yes, the AI-generated Wrapped AI podcast with the AI hosts. That did not go over well. Critics called it lackluster, soul-destroying. They argued it just missed the point.
The whole appeal is human-centric storytelling.
Right. And replacing that with an automated voice felt cheap. And that's on top of the ongoing criticism that the whole most streamed model just reinforces the dominance of superstars and ignores the struggles of smaller artists.
So ultimately, the fun of Wrapped is inseparable from the surveillance infrastructure that makes it possible.
That's the core of the critique, yeah.
Yeah.
The system is designed to maximize engagement, which in turn maximizes data collection.
So wrapping this all up, what does it all mean? Wrapped is, it's a textbook example of data-driven marketing. It turns our own history into a storybook that we then voluntarily share with our networks. It's brilliant for engagement, but it really highlights the power and the pitfalls of hyper-personalization.
It forces every single one of us to confront the fact that we are willingly trading vast amounts of personal and technical data for what? The convenience of good recommendations and one moment of social expression in December.
Right.
Wrapped is the gold standard for marketing, for sure. But it's also a profound cautionary tale about the depth of user monitoring that platforms are now conducting.
You know, thinking about all this, the future of these systems still faces some pretty major hurdles, scientifically, especially the lack of good data sets. Researchers can't really run experiments because the platforms hold all the real-world data. The next big breakthrough in this space might actually depend on creating easily accessible synthetic data sets that can mimic your listening life without actually monitoring you.
So simulated data to train the models.
Exactly. And you have to wonder how long until a platform like Spotify starts offering personalized, synthesized data about your listening life just for public research. That's a whole new layer of data abstraction we could be heading towards.